So good evening, everybody, and welcome to our sixth grade transition program. Just so everybody knows, we are recording this meeting. That way we can repost it for those who could not make it to the meeting. And what we'll ask is that throughout the entire meeting, if you have not been experiencing Zoom throughout this pandemic, what we have found that if multiple computers have their mics unmuted, we get a lot of feedback and it's very difficult to hear. And so if you could continue to leave your mic muted for the entire presentation, that would be very helpful to us. And so I am Abby Watson. I am honored to be the new principal of Academy for Discovery at Lakewood, the home of the Eagles. And so when we get through tonight, you're going to have a lot of information regarding the transition program that will take place, how the middle years program will look. The middle school is much different than middle school, well, excuse me, elementary school. And so we do want to make sure you have an idea of how that will look as well. We will briefly talk about how the first 9 weeks will look, as you do know that we are virtual. And so if you just kind of sit back and listen, and we hope to fill you with lots of information. And so I do want to introduce you to our Academy for Discovery at Lakewood's administrative team. And so we did put up our Bitmojis. If you have been following us on Facebook, our instructional leadership team has been working very hard. And one of the projects that I assigned everybody was to create their Bitmoji of themselves. And so once again, I'm Abby Watson, the new principal. This is my 16th year in the district. I am coming from Norview High School as both a teacher and an administrator. My assistant principal, I am proud to say, is Miss Shanae Lewis-Smith, who has been with ADL for quite a long time, and she transitioned at ADL from a teacher into an assistant principal. And our last administrator is Miss Judy Gullidge. Miss Gullidge is our middle year program coordinator and also a teacher specialist. She also does teach one of our Science 6 classes. And we will have a special guest speaking with us tonight, Mr. Tommy Smeagol. Mr. Smeagol has been a great and influential, not just friend of mine, but also colleague. I did teach with Mr. Smeagol while I was at Norview High School, and Mr. Smeagol has been a wonderful help as he has helped me transition into my new role as well. And so firstly, I'd like to talk to us about the mission of ADL. And so in partnership with students, families, and communities, Academy for Discovery at Lakewood will inspire in its students a lifelong passion for learning in a global society. With a commitment to academic excellence and personal integrity, students will demonstrate independent and reflective thinking, creativity, as well as a sense of social responsibility and intercultural understanding. And we are very proud of this mission as Mr. Smeagol and his team for the past, this will be our 6th year the school is open, has worked very hard to fulfill this mission. And so at this time, I am going to turn this over to our PTA president, Dr. Gonzalez Jackson, to speak about the amazing things that our PTA does.
Hi, everyone. So just a little history about my connection with ADL. I have a rising 9th grader who came to Lakewood in the middle of the 6th grade year and really did a wonderful job and enjoyed the school. And currently I have 2 rising 6th graders, twins. And when I got here, I was very much interested in being a part of the PTA. We came from a Catholic school where it was required and they used a lot of guilt. So I was used to helping out and I wanted to continue that. And so I've been part of the PTA since then. And I see some of the parents in the audience that I know that I've convinced to help as well. So, you know, this is a challenging time for us because we're going to be virtual. The PTA has always been here to support the teachers and the students. And so what we have to do for the next 9 weeks is figure out how can we do that in a virtual way. And so we sort of brainstormed at the end of last year. And so we really do welcome ideas and support from parents. If you have any ideas on how we can support the teachers, how we can support your students in a virtual way, that would be really, really helpful. Some of the things that we've done in the past that we have to modify, but we hope to continue in the future. Well, number one, we need some new board members. Wayne Green has graduated his girls and he's moved on. So right now, and I'm the acting president of the PTA, I welcome a slate of new board members. So if it's something that you're interested in, we try to divvy up the work so that no one person is overwhelmed with responsibilities. And if someone's busy with their own work or career, then other people on the board step in and take over. So we don't want anyone to feel like there's too much to do. But we're a very supportive board and we need new members. So we plan on taking nominations over the next month, and we'd like to have some elections in September. So that's the first thing that we want to do so we can get the board up and running. In the past, we've sponsored the 5K race. That is going to be virtual this year. We're still trying to figure out what that's going to look like. We're hoping that there are going to be some challenges that the students can sign up for in terms of how many miles they're going to do, getting donations for that. So we have more information for that that's forthcoming. In the past, we've done a parents' night out where parents have dropped off their students, and the Granby High School students and the PTA board members, we entertain them. So parents went and got coffee, or they went shopping, or they just went home. So we can't do that currently. We'd like to do that once school resumes, but we're sort of throwing around the idea of a virtual movie night. Again, not sure what that's going to look like, but I imagine it might involve Zoom or something of that nature. So we're thinking about how can we support students in that way. And then we have our teacher appreciation that we do in December. Again, that's something that we do to support and appreciate the teachers at Lakewood. And we typically have meals and refreshments and these sorts of things. So those are some of the things that we're going to be doing this upcoming semester. And like I said, we really do welcome anything that you can give. We will be having an online membership set up. It's not set up yet, but the link is here. We're working with the Virginia PTA, and it's called Member Hub. And so what you'll be able to do is if you want to just join the PTA, not necessarily as a board member, but you want to be a part of it, you'll be able to do that online. Membership is $6 for individual, $10 for family. We also like to put out on social media what we're doing so that people are on top of what's going on. And so we have Facebook presence. We've used balloons last year. I hope to use that again. And we also want to get our website refreshed and up and running. So I look forward to working with all the parents and the teachers and the students to make it so that PTA can make a huge impact.
And thank you, Dr. Gonzalez Jackson. I really do appreciate, especially that the PTA is trying to partner with us, especially to meet the needs of the social and emotional, not just of our students, but also our staff, as this COVID-19 pandemic has taken a toll on all of us. And so thank you for your work that you guys are doing with that. To continue on, let's start talking about our academic success of our 6th grade students. And so middle school, like we talked about, is much different than the elementary setting. And so first and foremost, we have some members of our team right here, Ms. Shanae Lewis and Ms. Huntoon, as well as Ms. Gullidge, who have been working diligently on creating a virtual 6th grade transition program for us that will take place on August 17th and 18th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. That program will introduce your students to not just the terminology that we use, but also looking at how asynchronous and synchronous learning take place. And so you'll have some synchronous, which is your live sessions, as well as some asynchronous, where the students will have different tasks that they need to complete, but they complete them at their own pace and at their own time. The transition program application was sent to everybody by email, as well as placed on our ADL Eagles Facebook page. We are working diligently. I know I've gotten tons of emails from parents that maybe one person is getting the email and not another. I helped a parent today when we were outside. Hopefully they're on this Zoom as well, where we found out that their email address had an extra E in it, which is why they weren't getting it. I do recommend checking your spam, checking your junk, checking your clutter. The emails that we send typically come from Blackboard Connect, and so make sure that you have allowed them to enter into your inbox. But we are working very hard. I just learned today actually that I do have the ability to enter emails into our student database, and so I've been working on that as well. And as your student moves from middle school, into middle school, excuse me, there's a lot more independence and there's a lot more freedom. And so at this point in their education career, they travel to and from their classes on their own. We don't walk them as a group anymore. And so that little bit of freedom, it will move with them, but it actually helps them gain their independence and they start to mature as well. Communication is often more of the responsibility of the student at this point. And so what we do is we start to teach your students how to be an advocate for themselves, because that is very important. Not that we don't want the parents to be advocates, but we are instilling these values in our students as well. And so you might see or notice less communication from teachers. However, I will tell you this first 9 weeks, you probably will receive a lot of communication because this is a new platform for all of us trying this online learning. And for those parents that are worried about online learning, this is not online learning that we did in the spring. And so in the spring, we did a lot of crisis teaching. We did a fabulous job at ADL. We had teachers that were using platforms, but everything was new and being thrown at us, and every other day something was changing. And so our teachers have been diligent all summer. They've been working on lessons. They've been trying to figure out how to make very innovative and very interactive lessons while students are online. And so we will be having a traditional school, and so your students will be learning. Parents, please make sure you still keep yourself involved by checking their student planners. So student planners actually have been ordered. I am not positive on the date yet that they will be in, but we will be having a drive-through in which you can pick up materials for your students that they will use during those first 9 weeks at home. Those dates will be posted. They got finalized today. I'm waiting on an approval from my executive director to ensure that those are okay. And once those are out, we will post those so that you know when you can come pick up your student supplies. Synergy and parent view are still going to be very important as well, especially with understanding the middle year program grading. And so the expectations of students, rigor is much more ramped up. And so rigor does not just mean hard. It means students are actually challenged to think, they're challenged to perform and challenged to grow. And these are things that they might not have previously done. And so what I do want you to understand, especially about middle years, is this isn't multiple choice anymore. The students actually are doing a lot more critical thinking. And so first and foremost at ADL, we do not offer double block math or reading, and this is a major difference compared to our other middle schools within the district. And so you are going to hear a presentation about the grading and the assessment policy tonight. Mr. Smeagol is going to deliver that. All Academy for Discovery at Lakewood students are required to participate in an 8th grade community project. And so this project does have a minimum amount of hours of 15 for a time commitment. All ADL students must remain in good academic standing with regards to attendance, discipline, as well as their grades in order to advance to the next grade level. And so the one thing we do want to make sure everybody does understand is just because students have attended ADL's MYP program does not guarantee acceptance into the IB program that Granby does have to offer. And at the end of this presentation, we will release a Eagle Compact to you, which both your student and the parent will sign. We were just going to do it virtually this year. And so on that compact, and we will review it as well, there are general responsibilities of both the parent and the student. So it's understanding that the 15 hours of time commitment for the 8th grade community project, making sure that the student remains in good academic standing, attendance, and discipline to progress to the next grade level. Also to make sure that they are, if they are retained, they do have to return to their zone school. They will not be allowed to continue at ADL. Then the biggest thing it will talk about is communicating regularly with teachers, supporting the school's rigorous approach to teaching and learning, and supporting the school and staff in maintaining proper discipline. And so I would like to turn the program over to Mr. Tommy Smeagol, who will help us all learn the skills, the assessments, and how IB works. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Watson, and I'm so glad to be on here today and see so many familiar faces. I do miss everyone, but I'm just around the corner as Granby High School's principal. I'll still see some familiar faces because some of your children go to Granby. And I also have a student at ADL. In fact, I've been encouraged to run for the PTA president, Ms. Watson. Should I go for it? Just kidding. I got a full plate. But I am excited to be here because this is something that we would normally do in the springtime, but because of COVID, a lot of what we did was delayed. And so this is a presentation that I would have done in the spring, and I appreciate Ms. Watson having me come on and to be able to share this with her as well, as she's new to this. And I'll tell you, you're getting a fantastic principal. I did work with Miss Watson years ago as a science teacher, and she was Norview's Teacher of the Year, and she worked her way up in administration very much like I did. I was a Norview High School teacher. And so you have a phenomenal new principal there that's going to continue the traditions that we've started at Lakewood and maybe even start some of our own. So give her a good chance and welcome. And I'm excited to be here again tonight. So one of the things that just makes Lakewood so unique compared to the other schools is actually this section of the presentation that I'm going to go through. Starting off with something called Approaches to Learning Skills, or ATLs. So we do use a lot of abbreviations in the IB program, so it's one of the things that you have to get used to. And also the assessment component and how ADL does our assessments. And our grading is completely unique and different than any other school in Norfolk. In fact, it's almost unique in the whole state. Ms. Goledge, our IB coordinator, will tell you, and Ms. Huntoon and other IB teachers, that schools from around the state have actually visited ADL to see our unique way of how we've implemented our grading system and have used that and actually to implement it in their own schools. So just to start off as with Approaches to Learning, if you look on this slide, you'll see some key words that as a parent of a sixth grader, there are things up there that you would want your student to have in order to be successful in life. And IB truly believes, in fact, this is one of the strongest components, not only of IB at the middle years level, but at the high school level, that IB believes that if we train your students this way and we work with them and we teach them and they learn this way, that they're going to just have so many skills to be successful to handle any situation in life. You'll also notice too that every once in a while there's words that look spelled incorrectly. So just real quickly, you'll see the word organization is not how we spell organization here in America. They like to use the British way of spelling their words because IB was founded through that language. So you'll see some of that also with the way we spell program with the extra M and E on the end. So there are 10 clusters with this. With Approaches to Learning, and you'll see once again these are all items that we want our students to have. Can they be social when it comes to collaborating with others? Those are so important in our skills now in the real workplace and how we socialize, and now even how we do it virtually. How do we communicate? Can our students communicate effectively in all of their interactions? And then you can see also the self-management skills, which I can tell you is really important for sixth graders. It's also will happen again in ninth grade. So if your student was attending traditionally, about November or December, we would ask you to look at the bottom of their backpack and you would see all of the crunched up papers and things that we send home with your student just right there on the bottom of it. So we like to teach them those extra skills about how to be organized and how to manage themselves. And then a key piece is the reflection component of it. Next slide, please. So we actually assess these they don't count for a grade, but there is a rubric system of scoring students on this. And this is an example of self-management. It is part of the IB process that we give students feedback on how they're performing in this. So you'll see that these are the different ways of assessing. The highest is 7 to 8. Which gives students the opportunity to start reflecting on how they're doing with their growth of self-management. And so you'll see 8, the student monitors their own progress using focus questions. Where am I going? How am I doing? What are my next steps? These are questions we want students to constantly use when they're reflecting. Another example would be in normal physical education courses, a student would actually get graded for dressing out for PE. And in the IB program, it's not about that grade of dressing out, it's about the feedback and how that relates to self-management. Am I being organized enough to remember to bring my clothing that I need for PE, that I'm dressed appropriately, and how does that fall under that self-management and that organization piece? Okay, next slide. Another big component of IB is academic honesty. And we do have 10 IB learner profiles that we focus on. In fact, if your student goes into the Granby IB program, we also talk about the 10 IB learner profiles, and one of those words is principled. And this is about integrity and honesty. And so we do want to teach students about our academic honesty policy and making sure that they understand that the work that they do has to be from them. And also this wealth of information that is out there on the internet, how to use the internet properly when it comes to research and citing information to be successful. Because we get used to just cutting and pasting. I'm working on my doctorate, and I just had to turn in a 35-page paper on Sunday that I had to do a lot of research, and there's a lot of information out there in which I could easily just take and put into my paper, but there's ways to cite this properly. And it's not about just disciplining the student either if they're cheating. We want to teach them. So as part of our academic honesty policy, if a student is caught cheating or using resources in the wrong way, they actually get sent to Miss Golich. And I know Miss Golich looks all mean there on the screen, but she's not mean. But she is there in the policy as the IB coordinator to actually educate the student on why you don't do this, why it's not appropriate, how you could do this better. The consequences, if the student continues, will follow the Norfolk Public Schools consequences with cheating, but we do want to give the opportunity to educate the student first on the difference of that. That's okay, Ms. Watson. Next slide. So the IB curriculum framework could actually be summed up right here on this diagram. And if you look on the outside of this circle, you'll see the IB middle years program and then international mindedness. So one of the misnomers about IB is that when you hear the word international baccalaureate, a lot of people think that this is all about foreign languages and cultures. That is important and part of IB. But really, if you look at the curriculum framework, it's taking all of the best practices from all the education in the world and putting it into a curriculum framework that says that if your student is taught this way, if they learn this way, that they will be successful in their endeavors post their education through IB. So as you dig in deeper into this, you'll see, as Ms. Watson explained, we don't double block math or reading at Lakewood because IB believes in every student taking all 8 subject groups. Now, there are exceptions to this. We do have students with IEPs that need minutes in math and reading. And so we will pull students out of a technology or a foreign language course, which on here is called language acquisition, to meet those needs. And that's something that will be discussed with case managers later. But you'll see on the outside the eight subject groups that we use, and they do have different names. For example, design is technology, math is math, science is science. But individuals and societies, that's Miss Huntoon on here. That's history and social studies, but we call it individuals and societies. Language and literature, language is English, and language acquisition is your foreign languages. And as you continue to go deeper, you'll see the real framework pieces of IB, your approaches to learning, the global contexts, the approaches to teaching, and making sure that the students get the concepts that they need. It's about, too, the understanding their place of where they are in the world. So we want our students to be able to explore learning outside of just Norfolk, Virginia. What is their place in the world in Norfolk, Virginia? What does it mean? And so these are items that come through in the IB curriculum framework, which makes it very powerful. And I can tell you from our students that have left Lakewood and gone on to high school, the feedback that we get from from teachers at the high school level and administrators on Lakewood students is how well prepared they are for taking on any of that teaching and learning and any style at the high school level. And we hear the same thing at the high school level with the IB program as well. And so we've done most of this with everybody, but I just want to review with you that IB does require students to take 8 subject groups, unless there's that exception, that flexibility with students that have IEPs or other education needs. And we have really done a great job at Lakewood at making sure that we can meet those students' needs. but I'll tell you that the schedule is a little bit rigid at Lakewood. So because your student gets 8 subject groups, you are getting that technology, you're getting that foreign language, you're getting PE, you're getting arts in particular. So your students getting that, but once they lock into some schedule, they have to almost stick with that for the next 3 years because of IB requiring those 8 subjects. And I'll give an example of that in just a minute. Sometimes there are district constraints, but we've been really good at working around those and making sure that we've been able to support students and giving them the electives that they need in order to be successful. So there is a minimum requirement of 50 hours in every subject group. Obviously, you can't just do English and math in 50 hours, but this has allowed us later to do some flexibility with the arts programming and that requirement of visual and performing arts. So students do have to take a full year of English, math, science, and social studies. They also have to take a full year of health and physical education. And this is important to note because the district will offer summer PE for middle school students. That is not meant for Lakewood students. IB requires students to be in physical education each year and learn it that way. So a student cannot opt out of PE by taking the summer school course. That is meant for other specialty programs, which still double block math and reading to allow those students to have another elective, but we don't need to do that because we offer all the electives. Students also take a full year of language acquisition in a foreign language. And I'll tell you that we are the only school that offers years 1 and 2 of foreign languages. So your student can leave Lakewood with 2 credits in a language. Students must have a minimum of 50 hours of instruction in each of those in design. And then in the 3 years of IB, which is, this could be changing, but for right now with our group coming in, students do have to have a visual and a performing arts experience. And so when we were doing the schedule request with you, I sent this presentation out to you to see this, but we just want to reiterate that when your student picks those arts classes, that they are basically locking themselves into those art classes for the next 3 years. And so I'll show you that on the, in just a few minutes as an example. So if students are taking orchestra, that is considered a performing arts. In the 3 years there at Lakewood, they need to get that visual art in. So what we've done is we've been able to work that into the schedule. And then students who are taking the visual art at some point have to have the performing arts, and we've worked that in as well. In order for students to qualify for any pre-algebra 6 classes, it used to be the 500 on the SOL test, but we don't have that. We've basically been able to place everybody off of the teacher recommendations. They have to have a positive teacher recommendation and then looking at their grades from last year. We'll tell you that sometimes students get recommended for these courses. And one of the things that makes Lakewood unique as well is we do have a variety of options. So we don't want to force high school level courses on students if they're not ready for it just to take them. And so we did build in the schedule that there were some students that were recommended for pre-algebra 6 that may not like it after the first month when they realize how hard it is. And so we've paired it up at the same time as a math 6, honors math 6 class, so that if we need to do a schedule change, we can move a student into that. And the math teacher, Mr. Houck, that does pre-algebra, will be working with parents that have been recommended for those courses. Honors courses as well. Students must have received a certain grade for that. We have a little bit more flexibility with that. But I want everybody to understand too, at Lakewood, we try to not ability group our students as much as possible. So we mix our honors and regular classes together. There are some classes later on when they get the 8th grade, for example, Science 8 students are different in a different class than Earth Science students. But we do have that mixed ability so that every student can have the floor and the ceiling raised at the same time. Okay. All right, so just to go through the schedule once again, just to show you how this works, is that all of the students here, and I don't know what happened to the beginning Chinese, but we are still offering beginning Chinese. It must have got chopped off of here somehow. But in language, when your student takes beginning Spanish or beginning Chinese, they are locking themselves in to take that for the next 2 years. Now, if a student is not prepared to continue taking a high school level course on the teacher recommendation, the student can repeat the exploratory or their beginning class or retake the Chinese or Spanish one, which is the high school level courses. We do not offer any high school level courses. No middle school offers it in language and literature and reading. Every student is in the Honors Social Studies 6 class, which is US History 2, and all students take civics in 7th grade, which is a little bit different than other middle schools. They usually take civics in 8th grade. So normally they would take US 1 in 6th grade and US 2 in 7th grade. We offer civics in 7th grade, and then the student has the opportunity to take world geography, which is a high school level course in 8th grade, or they can repeat civics if they need to repeat the class. Science, we do have honors and regular, and students will move on to that, and then they will eventually go through Science 8 or Earth Science. There's your math. You can see your math separation as well. That happens. We have Math 6 and Honors Math 6, Pre-Algebra 6. Your Pre-Algebra 6 students end up taking Algebra 1 in 7th grade and Geometry in 8th grade. Or your Math 6 and Honors Math 6, we do front load and move Pre-Algebra up. They can either repeat Pre-Algebra in 8th grade if they're not ready, or they can move into Algebra 1. Every Lakewood student that is in the IB program, which is just about everybody, it can leave Lakewood with some high school credits, which is really great. They can leave with, I think the minimum is at least 2 or 3 high school credits. But once again, we don't want to force it. So if your student's not ready, they don't have to necessarily take those high school level courses. I just want to focus real quickly again on the arts and show you that in red are your visual arts classes. That's your Art 6 and Theater 6 classes. And then your green are your performing arts, which is your music classes. If your student chose Art 6 or Theater 6, they will get their visual and their performing arts knocked out this year. And so next year, when they're 7th graders, they can either continue on in Theater 7 and then Theater 8, which is technical and acting. So we have actually a new class this year, which is kind of the stage hand, learning about lighting and the background, or they can continue into digital art and intro to art, which is a high school level course. Our music students, because an instrument is not something that you can just do in a semester, so we still give the students the full year of music. They will go through, but in their 7th grade year, what we do is we take them out of mobile technologies, which is their design course, which is a full year, and we actually split that and put them in digital art so they can get that visual arts experience as well as their performing, which is the music piece. And then everybody goes on and takes digital applications, which is a high school level course. And once again, everybody takes physical education. And I know this may be redundant for everybody, but the reason why we go back through this with you is because we don't do a lot of schedule changes. So if you have high schoolers, you know that they move their schedules around a lot and kids can request all these classes. We don't do that at Lakewood. So when your student picks a class in 6th grade, that basically follows this pattern all the way through 8th grade. And so you don't usually hear from a counselor on a schedule request. So if they say they're going to be in band, they're going to be in intermediate band in 7th grade and an advanced band in 8th grade, and they have to stick with that, okay? All right, next slide. So another thing that makes IB different is when you look at the experiences your student is going to get in the classroom, and it is that culture of inquiry. And so our wonderful PTA president can tell you, and I can as well, because we both had 8th graders that just left Lakewood and now will be going into the IB program at Granby, that the experiences, even when we were doing virtual, that the students get that action-based, they get the inquiry-based, but the biggest part of IB is they are constantly reflecting on their learning. And I think that that is one of the most powerful pieces of IB. And so as you move forward, you'll see that there are 3 different types of learning goals generally in education. There's this acquisition type of learning, which is where students get their factual information, all of their basic skills, and they get that in the IB program. There's another type of learning, which is meaning making. This is about helping your learner, your student construct the meaning. What does it mean? How did I get to understand this? I'm getting the important concepts, the ideas, and I'm then processing them. But the biggest piece that you will not see in a lot of traditional ways of learning is that transfer. How do you take the knowledge that you have, that you're getting in this class, and how do you take it and how do you apply it to other situations in your life or other subject groups? And this is one of the most powerful pieces of the IB program. And so IB truly believes in this, and so that's why it is assessed differently than other programs. So if you look at the next slide, I want you to just take a second and I want you to read this question that would be a typical question, say on a math test, a word problem. So just take a second to read this. So if we were doing this live, I would call on a few students to ask them, could you tell us the student's answer? Is it a complete answer? Does it make sense? And so a student generally would be used to just answering the question and not explaining this even further. And so yes, the question is answered in here. It's not explained. And in some cases, a student may even write an answer like this, but it's not the right answer. The numbers aren't correct. But the student attempted, but it's not explained. So now let's take a look at another student's answer. And this student took the time to explain how they got to the answer. They read the question, they've transferred some extra knowledge, and I'm going to tell you, if you look at this, you're going to see some spelling errors and possibly even grammatical errors, and that's okay, because in IB, their process is about learning and how to write better and how to explain your answers better. But you'll see that the student has taken the next step to really explain how they've answered this question. And you'll see the reason the student, even though reason's not spelled correctly, the reason for that is because Spratley's truck rental charges, right? So the student is beginning to use those critical thinking skills to really explain their answers. So if you're a parent out there and you are familiar with Parent View, take a second and look at, this is a sample of what a Parent View, when you were to log in and look at your students' grades in elementary school, this is what it would look like. And I'm going to ask you, what information do you gain out of looking at this type of grading? So I'm a parent and I can see that I have a pretty good student here if this is my student, because I see a lot of hundreds on there. And I love hundreds like any other parent. Yeah, they got a 78 on a test, but those hundreds just look really good. Well, we like to call that fluff. And so when you look at a grade book, you'll see all those hundreds, but now look at a new view with the IB way of grading. And this is how, why things are a little bit different at Lakewood. We score out of an 8. And so take a few minutes, a few seconds to actually look through this. And you're going to see the words summative and formative. So that previous slide showed you lots of those hundreds. That's your formatives. So homework, classwork, the alternative assessment even that's on there could be considered a formative in some cases. You'll see classwork. Their teachers give a lot of this work and it's supposed to build up to mastery, but oftentimes it's not, they're not graded appropriately and the students just get 100 for doing the work, not actually for showing the knowledge of it. Well, those are your formatives, and your summatives would be your test. And you can see that the student got a 78 on their test, which is their summative, and they're not showing 100% mastery. And so why is my student getting all these hundreds when they're not, and they're getting a 78 on the test, they're not really showing that mastery? So this is where IB grading comes in. And so you'll see that this is out of a scale of 0 through 8. And it's about the student showing progress. And so the closer that student gets to an 8, the better they are. And at Lakewood, the students have the whole year to show progress. Formatives do not count towards the student's actual grade. Summatives do. So that one test that student had on the previous screen with the 78 would actually count towards the student's grade, where the fluff would not. Now that fluff is important, okay, because it is about practice and the student learning how to practice what they need to know for those summatives. And teachers can use that, the formatives, as a way of like a tiebreaker on a student's grade on showing that progress. But it is really those summatives that are important for the student. So let's show you a quick example of a rubric. This is in math. There are 3 years, year 1 and year 3 of rubrics. So this is a math rubric for year 3. So these would be 8th graders, not 6th graders. And you'll see the level, this is criterion A, in which students need to show their knowledge in math. So students would be assessed on a 0 through 8 scale. 0, we like to say at Lakewood, it's really hard to fail at Lakewood, but it's also hard to get an A at Lakewood. And so the 0 piece is just a student not doing the work. They've made no effort to turn it in, just like a regular 0 in any other class. But even if a student is starting off with a 1 or 2 and moving to a 3 or 4, that's what you want to see as a parent at Lakewood, is that the student is moving up and showing progress. And I'm going to tell you, just as a parent who went through this, that you may have a student who made straight A's from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. And on that quarter 1 report card is going to be the first time that you may see a C or even a B-. Do not panic, parents. Don't punish your kid. Don't put them in the closet and tell them they're a horrible child. Plus, that's child abuse, so don't do that. Just tell them, give them that encouragement. Okay, well, you have a 3 or 4 in this class. What do you need to do in the class in order to move to that next level? Because at Lakewood, a student gets rewarded as they continue to make progress. And we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. So we'll take, just real quick, our teachers have learned how, because these assessments that we give are very, they're not multiple choice, so it's not sticking it in a scanner and getting the score back very quickly. Teachers take the time to evaluate and assess students, so they have these quick marks that they developed to help students as they're assessing the summatives. Okay, so let's just take a moment and look at a student. These are a student's final scores for criterion B, just from any subject. So you'll see 3 students here, Jeff, Alex, and Aaliyah, and you'll see the scores that they have made on their summatives. Notice that Jeff is missing a score. He did not even turn in an assignment, so he doesn't even have a 0 there. He's just missing it. So I want you to take a second and look at that and think in your head, well, what would Jeff get? So this is out of 8. So think out of 0 through 8. What would Jeff get? What would Alex get? And what would Aaliyah get? In our traditional way of thinking, we would add up those numbers and divide it by how many assignments the student has in order to get the average of it. Well, we don't average grades at Lakewood. We give students their grades based off of their highest consistent score. And so take a second on the to think about this again. Let's look at the next slide and see. Here's Jeff and Alex and Aaliyah for each of their criterion. We would take that and we would look at what their, I'm sorry, Abby, will you go back, Ms. Watson, will you go back one more? So I forgot to mention, Jeff, if you look at his highest sustained score, consistent score, you'll see that Jeff would get a 4, okay? Alex, you'll see, he got to a 4, but he was maintaining those 3s. So Alex would have a 3 in this criterion, and then Aaliyah would have a 6 because she's been maintaining that 6. So I apologize for that. And Ms. Watson, I think one parent posted that they can't hear the audio. I just want to make sure that before I continue, okay. So we're good? Okay. So if you look at Jeff, Alex, and Aaliyah, you'll see in criterion B the 4, the 3, and the 6. And so as parents, when you're looking in your students' grade books, you're looking for that final grade, those progress grades, that they are as close to that 8 as possible. So let's look at Jeff for a minute. He has a 6, a 4, a 5, and a 6, because there's 4 criterion in each of the subject groups. What final grade do you think Jeff would have? It's okay, Miss Watson. He would have a B+. So even though he didn't have 7 and 8s, he came very close to getting an A, but he got a B+. Alex he has a, and Aaliyah, who was maintaining 7, 6s, and 8s, has an A-. So what we do at Lakewood, we will add those 4 grades, those 4 numbers together, and we have a rubric that tells us what letter grade the student gets. And this is a manual process. So what ends up happening, and you'll see on the next screen, is when you're a parent and you go into parent view, okay, you will see letter grades when we've submitted final letter grades, but you will not see an average there. Every once in a while, and this is when we get emails and phone calls, an average will pop up, and it's because of how the teacher was entering the grade. And so you might see an average of like a 14.5, and it might even say an E in the class. That's not actually their grade. So just ignore that. That's just a hiccup sometimes. But what we really want to look at is the next one, which is, and this is another screen, by the way, that just shows, that there's no averages there. You're not going to see it. You have to dig in as a parent and actually go into the grade book of the teacher. So you would select the class right there, and then it would take you into a screen that looks like this. Okay, this is what you want to see as a parent. And look, parents, I know right now you may be overwhelmed with what Mr. Smeagol is saying, but let me tell you something. Your student is going to know this better than you will ever know it. And so I need for you to trust your students in this grading system. And we have not received any complaints in 3 years since we've implemented this. So it is working, and it works very well. So you just have to trust the process. And Miss Watson stays on the teachers and Miss Lewis-Smith on making sure that they're getting those grades in there. But you want to look as a parent, you'll see down below, these are all the assignments. This is a Science 6 course that Miss Golich was teaching. You'll see at the very top, current progress, criterion A, current progress, criterion B, current progress C, and current progress D. In every teacher's grade book, you will see that, and you'll see that it's dated June 14th, which in this case was the end of the school year. Okay, now you do have a couple semester courses that it will have the end of the first semester, but this is the numbers that you want to look at as a parent when you're seeing if your student is making progress. So you'll see this student has a 7 out of an 8 in criterion A, a 6 out of 8 in criterion B, a 7 out of 8 in C, and a 6 out of 8 in D. And so this student is performing very well at this stage of grading. You can go down and you will see again the different grades. You'll see summative grades. You'll also see an ATL that has been assessed there on the student, probably on their organization on this. So teachers will be giving feedback. You just have to get used to not seeing that 0 through 100 and looking at a 0 through 8. And it's about trying to get as close to that 8 as possible, but understanding that they may not get an 8, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Okay? So we've given you some samples of assessments that are on here, which we like to show this. So Ms. Watson, scan this. You'll see that 3, this is a science test, sorry, on that. You'll see, first of all, it's not a multiple choice test. Okay, so you don't see a selection of A, B, C, and D, and students that are on here, you've got to get used to writing and explaining your answers. And I'm going to tell you, this is going to make you so much more successful in even taking SOL tests when you can explain these answers even further. So first thing I want you to notice is there is a score on the top. The student got a 3 out of an 8 on this. You'll see over on the left the quick marks, the P's that the teacher was giving the student. and including a Y down there at the bottom, that yes, you're possibly getting there, you're there. So this student got a 3. And then on the next slide, it's going to tell you why that student got a 3. And I think Ms. Watson, you're going to find a way to share this with parents so they can see the sample test. We don't use these tests anymore, students, so don't think you're getting a free test this year. But you'll see why the student got a 3. And now here's a student who got an 8 on this. And yes, there is more writing, and it's not always about the quantity. It's about the quality of what the student is putting down and how they're explaining their answer. And in this case, the student even made a little diagram, to show the teacher what they're saying. And so you can see why that student also got an 8 on this assessment. They've explained it, they've outlined it. Here's a math assessment you'll see, and this is a good example of why it's not about quantity, because this student has written the same amount as the next student, but this student got a 4 on the assignment. And as explained by the math teacher on the next slide, you'll see that they did not meet all of the requirements that to be shown in the rubric for 7 and 8, or even a 5 and 6. And here's a student who got an 8 on that assessment. And so you can see the writing is still the same. They have the same amount of writing, but it is how they explained it and that they met the rubric. So there are no surprises with this as well. The teachers provide the rubrics to the students. In fact, in many of the 6th grade classes, the teachers take the time. Ms. Huntun is outstanding in teaching the students how to answer these questions. Ms. Goledge in science, they've put together sentence starters. So they've given them even some tips about how to start answering the question with this. So it is a process in which students are learning how to master these rubrics, so that they can get even better on how they answer the assessments and get close to that 8 as possible. So before I go on with this, I just wanted to say, one of the nicest things about Lakewood is your student has the whole year to show progress. So let's just say that Q1 grades come out and your student has a C- in Science 6. They have all the way until the end of the year to raise that grade to an A, and we will go back and change that C- to an A. And so they have an opportunity to show progress. Now, if they don't show progress and say their grade declines, we don't go back and change the grade to a lower grade. So you don't have to worry about that. And I'm going to tell you, our students, you will see them sometimes in the classroom when they've moved from a 1 or a 2 to a 3 or 4. Sometimes they get just as excited about moving from a 1 or a 2 to a 3 or 4 that if they got a 7 or an 8, because they've been working so hard sometimes on these rubrics and able to do that. So we want students to ask themselves, how well am I doing? How well am I learning? Your students will take a future problem solving class, and as part of that class, they will do a little conference. They do an evaluation of their grades. They're going to talk to you as a parent about their progress, and they're going to tell you how they're doing and how well they are learning. Oftentimes, our students only say what they're doing. We want them to also say to you, how am I learning? And you will find, I had this with my student as well, you'll see conversations increase with your student at home. They're going to want to talk about some things that they learned in class. They may hear something on the news that excites them, and they're going to dig in deep with you and maybe even argue with you over what they hear on the news and debate something about that's happening with our president or the United States. And so that is where you know that learning is really happening there and how we're preparing your students. So teachers, our teachers are great. They've been practicing this for years. Please trust the teachers. If at any time you need help or assistance, Ms. Goledge is here. You can reach out to her. There is also a blog from Lakewood's website. We have an IB blog that there's a tutorial that you can watch on how grading works. If you want to go back and look at that, we walk you through on that. But there's a lot of resources. We just ask for you to trust the process and trust the system and work with us. It is a difference than any other Norfolk Public Schools, but it is such a great experience for your student. And I appreciate the opportunity to be able to explain this to all of you, and for Ms. Watson as well, as she's learning a lot more about Lakewood's assessment policy.
I am. And thank you, Mr. Smeagol. And a few things I just want to reiterate to people. I also am doing these trainings just like you are as parents. And so I have been going out, I've been reading Ms. Gullidge's blog, I have been Googling things, I've been listening to podcasts to learn as well. And so we are learning together. And so I do appreciate the time, and the teachers at ADL are the experts. And so one thing, parents, I do want to just bring your attention to it is 6:26. I know we're not on a time limit, but I do want to guarantee you that if this was your child sitting in front of the computer for virtual learning that's going to take place the first 9 weeks, not one teacher at ADL, and I can probably say not one teacher at Granby High School, will be lecturing your children for 57 minutes, since it's 6:27 now, straight. And so I do want to make sure that you understand when we go through this virtual schedule here in a second, your child will not be sitting listening to us without doing interactive activities. They might be on the computer still, and Ms. Huntoon might say, okay, everybody, you're going to work on XYZ at this time. And she may still be on the Zoom to answer questions and things like that. But at no time, and if it ever happens, please reach out to us right away and let us know, because this is a long process and this is a new process. And so I do want to go into, this is the new normal, making the best of an unfortunate situation. As I have said, Mr. Smeagol has said, I am walking into a brand new principalship in an extraordinary school under a COVID-19 pandemic. And so you throw in a lot of things together. We don't know what's up, down, side to side, but we get through it and we get through this together. And I appreciate everybody's warm welcome right now as well. And so when we look at this year, the instructional leadership team and I have been meeting, and we have made the theme of this year is that we are soaring to new experiences. And because this, not just this pandemic, but MYP and ADL has new experiences that your students will be able to be a part of. We have very unique clubs and activities. We're actually going to try several of them virtually. Parents, if you have a unique skill, please reach out. I had a parent reach out who teaches meditation. And so we're going to offer maybe some meditation a few times during the first 9 weeks to whole families so that we can sit and do things together. It could be that you knit and you teach us how to knit online. Any sort of new experience we would appreciate, and we are always #EagleStrong. And so very quickly, I just want to reiterate, even though we are starting virtually, we are going to begin on an even odd block schedule. And I do understand that June is not on here. The way that they did the schedule this year, June is on the second page. And so don't think that we are ending school year early this year. We are not at this point. We are still going full strong. And so the first day of school is on September the 8th. And so one difference that you'll find in any middle school, even in Norfolk, is we operate on an odd and an even day. Sometimes you'll hear this referred to as an A-B schedule. A refers to our odd days and B refers to our even days. Excuse me. So for instance, on September 8th, when your student logs into the computer for their first Zoom lesson, they will only be logging in on September 8th to 4 classes. On September 9th, they'll log into a different set of 4 classes, and the classes just rotate even, odd, or excuse me, odd, even, odd, even, odd, even. This is on the NPS website, but this is also going to be posted on, it'll be attached to our website as well as our Facebook page. So typically at ADL, and this is very traditional for any middle school, so if you have students at other schools as well as the high school level, the only thing big difference, and this is if we were normal school year, nothing crazy going on. One difference that ADL has is we have a 10-minute morning meeting. This is where we take our daily attendance for the day. It is a place where the students traditionally will always go. They can have those conversations with us teachers just to check in before they start their day. Typically our classes are 83 minutes long with a 4-minute transition time. Lunch is broken up and their lunches are 30 minutes apiece. So this is what we hope to get to when we return to normal. And so I do want to share with you, this is only a draft. I have submitted this to my executive director in order to be approved for ADL. But what we have done so far is we have been directed that we need to follow a traditional school schedule. And I do know this can be concerning to some parents right now. However, what we're looking at is we will still have our morning meetings with our teachers via Zoom, so teachers can check in with students, see how they're doing, answer any questions before we start our day. And then what we have done is we have Bell 1-2 will be from 8:30 to 9:50, and you can see that's 80 minutes. So it is a little bit shorter, but this is not going to cut the quality of their education. Like we did talk about earlier, they'll have some synchronous portions of their class, and then they will have some asynchronous. We did get about a 5-minute transition time, which is longer than the day. And part of that is because if a student needs to log off of one Zoom, get to another Zoom, if they need to get a snack, let the dog out, use the restroom, they can do that during that time. I do want to show you that during the lunch break, instead of a traditional 30 minutes, I have scheduled for 40 minutes right now. One reason for that is students will no longer possibly be going to the lunchroom where they type their number in and they're given a lunch. They might have to make their own lunch. A parent might have to help them make a lunch. Perhaps they might have to make a lunch for siblings. So we wanted to give that time and allow that flexibility for them to have a break in the middle of the day. And then you can see 2 classes round out the rest of the day. All classes are 80 minutes. And so first and foremost, I am not monitoring the chat room right now, but I can imagine right now, one question that every parent has been asking is, what happens if I have to work from 8 to 3 and I'm not able to be home with my child during these times and they're not able to complete the schoolwork during this day? How will they get their attendance? And I can assure you that question has been sent to our chief of school. It has been sent to our superintendent for guidance, but we are working on recording our Zoom lessons so that parents can also watch later on, at least the synchronous part of it, so that they can at least help their children at the end of the day if they're available. But I do want to assure you that that question is being addressed, and we hope to have an answer for you in the next week or so. So virtual learning, teachers will be teaching live via Zoom daily. This is going to be similar. Your students will get an opportunity to try this on Monday and Tuesday during the virtual 6th grade virtual transition camp for your students. They will participate in the direct instruction. There will still be guided practice. There will be independent practice. And a lot of our middle year program, it's all about collaboration as well. And so there will still be some collaborative projects that the students will have to do. Students will be expected to adhere to the student code of conduct while participating in the Zoom sessions and the breakout rooms. And so in the spring, there was a lot of different things we heard about Zoom. They were calling them Zoom bombings, where people would come into the Zoom session, things like that. And so we want to make sure everybody understands that it is appropriate. Students should be dressed when they're in Zooms. They should be minimizing any background if possible. The breakout rooms will be used, and those are going to be used for small group collaboration. And so just quickly, we wanted just to review the activities that do take place at Lakewood. Like we talked about earlier, we are going to try to do as much normal online as we possibly can. So it could be that our art club might sponsor a paint club or a paint night. We're still going to be having our Battle of the Books. That's very important. We could have some virtual chess club. I'm not sure how we might do golf online, but we can try it as well. Our theater teacher right now is really working on how we can do performances online. And you can see the list of other activities that we are going to try to make sure that we are able to sustain even in a virtual environment to give students a break and a little sense of normalcy. Communication is huge at ADL. I have learned that right away. Please make sure that your contact information is up to date with the main office. We do have a Facebook page that we monitor regularly and we do update, and that is the @ADL Eagles. The NPS website is a source. We do use Blackboard Connect. That's for our voice communication as well as mass emails. At the elementary level, they do use the Blooms, where at the secondary level, they do use Remind instead. We are going to come out with tutorials for every single one of these, so please don't fear if it's something that you are not familiar with. Parent View, please make sure you have your access as well. Google Classroom is how we will be beginning the year, and eventually we will be transitioning to a learning management system called Canvas. So ADL does have a brand new athletic director this year. His name is Tim Maynard. He can be reached at the email address below. In terms of sports right now for the middle school level, middle school sports are put on hold. As we all know, VHSL has suspended all sports until at least December. And so we are not sure what that will look like just yet, but as soon as we hear something about how sports will be and how the season will be, we will be sure to let you know. We take a lot of pride at ADL. And so you are a Lakewood ADL Eagle, and you don't have to play a sport in order to be an Eagle. By supporting your classmates, by supporting your school, that is a big thing. Just coming to the events, that makes us all part of the ADL Eagle family. And so traditionally, if we were able to have our middle school sports, we do offer most sports at the high school level as well. So our football, volleyball, cheerleading, softball, as you can see, both soccer's debate and forensics is very big and very big at the high school level as well. And so like I did say, we are in a holding pattern right now, unfortunately, for middle school sports and how the seasons may look if we are able to come back. They are actually, and this will be on the next slide, we are offering physicals already. So we did get the go ahead to offer that. And so in order to try out when we do come back, and so it's better to prepare now, because as we know, if we say next week we're going to have tryouts, there'll be a rush to get a physical. So I do encourage you to get that now. So VHSL or the Norfolk physical, either one, it is 4 pages, and all 4 pages do have to be filled out. There is a concussion form that you will need to fill out as well. That can be found on the ADL or the NPS website. And in order to participate in sports, 2.0 GPA is required. So the good news is, like I just said, Norfolk Public Schools is offering upcoming sports physicals. It is $20. It is cash only. You can see right there, there is a physical on Saturday the 22nd at 9 a.m. at Booker T. Washington High School. Wednesday, August 26th, 5 p.m. at Lake Taylor High School. The 2nd of September, 5 p.m. at Powhatan Stadium. And on Saturday at 9 a.m. on September the 12th will be at Norview High School. I do want you to understand, you do not have to be a high school student. You do not have to be in their zone to go to these. You can go to any of these physical dates that accommodate you. So at ADL, we did talk about at the very beginning that, excuse me, I just realized that I did spell that wrong. Yes, it should say ADL 6th grade parent student compact. And so in order to be an ADL student, we ask that all parents and guardians will fill out their 6th grade parent student compact. And so if you take your phone and you go to the camera and you scan the QR code, this will take you directly to the form. This is also going to be posted as soon as we get off of this meeting on the Facebook page that you can do this as well. So you can either use the QR code or you can actually use the form right here as the link. And so don't fret if I changed the slide and you have not gotten to it yet. And so I do know that the chat box has been active, and I do thank the people who have been helping me through this by answering your questions or recording your questions. And if you do have additional questions, the ADL questions, we do monitor that email address and we make it our goal to respond within 24 hours. And so please bear with us if we have missed your email at one point. Feel free to just send it again, as we have been busy, but we are making sure that we address every question. And I just want to thank all of the people who have helped us today. Dr. Gonzalez Jackson, please join the PTA with her. Mr. Tommy Smeagol, who has helped co-host this, as well as all those behind the scene you can't see right now, Miss Judy Gullidge, Miss Jessica Huntoon, and Miss Shanae Lewis-Smith, who have been admitting everybody to the meeting as well as monitoring the chat. I hope you have a wonderful and safe rest of your evening. Please take care, stay healthy, and wear your mask. Thank you all.